The great doors of the council chamber burst open with a sound that echoed through the massive hall. Ambassador Velrix of the Torani hegemony ran inside, her 4 legs carrying her faster than anyone had ever seen her move. Her silver scales were pale with fear. Her large black eyes were wide with panic. "Emergency session," she screamed. "I demand an emergency session now." The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was the most important place in the known universe. It floated in space at the center of civilized territory. Thousands of species had representatives here. They made laws. They kept peace. They decided the fate of worlds. High Chancellor Miraset looked down from her elevated seat. She was old, very old. Her species lived for thousands of years, and she had seen more than most. Wars had come and gone. Empires had risen and fallen. Species had been born and died. Very little surprised her anymore. "Ambassador Velrix," she said in her calm, ancient voice. "What troubles you so greatly?" Velrix reached the center of the chamber. She was breathing hard. Her hands were shaking as she activated her data pad. A hologram appeared above the chamber floor, showing a star map. "The Kethvor Dominion," Velrix said. "They have launched a full invasion fleet." The chamber fell silent. The Kethvor were known to everyone. They were conquerors, destroyers. They had crushed 17 civilizations in the past 1,000 years. Their ships were powerful. Their weapons were terrible. Their soldiers knew no mercy. "Which world?" Miraset asked, though her voice showed no emotion. "Which member species requires our assistance?" "That is the problem, High Chancellor." Velrix zoomed the map to a small yellow star in an unremarkable spiral arm. "The target is not a member world. The target is Earth." Confused murmurs spread through the chamber. Earth? Most representatives had never heard of it. A junior aide quickly pulled up the records. "Earth," the aide read aloud. "Third planet in the Sol system. Home to a species called humans. Pre-contact civilization. Current technology level. Primitive. They have achieved basic spaceflight within their own system. No faster than light capability. No energy shields. No plasma weapons. Population, approximately 8 billion. 8 billion souls," whispered Ambassador Crixtall of the Methane Collective. "And they have no way to defend themselves." High Chancellor Miraset closed her 4 eyes for a moment. She had seen this before. Many times. A young species, just beginning to reach for the stars, suddenly facing an enemy they could not possibly defeat. It was always tragic. It was always the same. "How large is the Kethvor fleet?" she asked. Velrix swallowed hard. 3,000 warships, 200 troop carriers, 50 support vessels. The Kethvor Supreme Commander, Thaxul, leads them personally. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. 3,000 ships, against a world with no real defenses. It was not an invasion. It was an execution. "Can we intervene?" asked a young ambassador from the Stellar Union. "Can we send help?" Miraset shook her head slowly. "Earth is not a member world. We have no treaty with them, no agreement. By our own laws, we cannot interfere in the affairs of pre-contact species. Then we just watch them die?" The young ambassador's voice cracked with emotion. "We document," Miraset said firmly. "We remember. We honor their existence by recording their end. It is all we can do. It is all we have ever done." She raised one withered hand. "Activate the long-range observation arrays. Focus all sensors on the Sol system. Let the galaxy witness what happens there. Let future generations know that a species called humans once existed, and they were not alone in the universe, even if they never knew it." The massive screens around the chamber flickered to life. They showed Earth from space. Blue oceans, green lands, white clouds swirling in beautiful patterns. It looked peaceful. It looked fragile. Ambassador Velrix pulled up more data on the humans. She needed to understand who was about to die. What she found made her pause. "High Chancellor," she said quietly. "These humans, they have an unusual history." "All species have history," Miraset replied. "Not like this." Velrix displayed the information for all to see. "They have been fighting each other since they first learned to stand upright. They have had thousands of wars, millions of battles. They invented weapons specifically designed to cause maximum suffering. They split the atom and immediately built bombs that could destroy cities. They came close to destroying themselves multiple times." The chamber grew quiet again. This was strange. Most species in the galaxy had evolved past internal conflict long before achieving spaceflight. Violence between members of the same species was considered primitive, barbaric. They sound like animals, someone muttered. They sound like the Kethvor, another voice said. Velrix continued reading. They have a concept they call total war. It means using every possible resource, every possible method, every possible person to achieve victory. Civilians become soldiers. Factories become weapons plants. Cities become fortresses. They do not stop fighting until one side is completely defeated. High Chancellor Mira Set leaned forward slightly. In all her years, she had never heard of a pre-contact species with such a violent nature. It was disturbing. And yet, it will not matter, she said finally. No amount of fighting spirit can overcome Kethvor technology. The humans have chemical rockets and simple nuclear weapons. The Kethvor have plasma cannons and energy shields. It would be like fighting a starship with rocks and sticks. The screens showed the Kethvor fleet dropping out of hyperspace near Earth's moon. 3,000 ships arranged in perfect formation. They blotted out the stars. Supreme Commander Thaxul's flagship moved to the front. It was massive. Its weapons could crack continents. Its shields could withstand anything the humans might throw at it. The standard Kethvor conquest message played on all frequencies. It was translated into the local languages automatically. Creatures of this world, you are now property of the Kethvor Dominion. Resistance will result in extermination. Surrender will result in slavery. You have one of your planetary rotations to comply. This is not negotiable. The Council watched and waited. They had seen this message sent to 17 worlds before. Some surrendered immediately. Some tried to fight and were crushed within days. None had ever survived. They expected silence from Earth, or perhaps screaming, or begging. What they got was something else entirely. A signal came from the planet below. It was broadcast on every frequency the humans could reach. It came in dozens of languages, from hundreds of transmission sources. The entire planet was speaking as one voice. You should not have come here. That was all. 5 words. No threats, no boasts, no surrender. Just a simple statement of fact. High Chancellor Mira Set sat up straighter. In all her years of watching civilizations fall to the Kethvor, she had never heard a response like that. There was no fear in those words. No panic, no desperation. There was something else. Something she could not quite identify. On the screens, they watched the humans move. Satellites changed position. Ground installations powered up. Ships that had been in orbit around other planets began burning toward Earth at maximum speed. They are preparing to fight, Ambassador Velrix said in disbelief. They actually think they can fight. Fools, someone said sadly. Brave fools. But High Chancellor Mira Set said nothing. She just watched the screens with ancient eyes that had seen too much. Something about those 5 words bothered her. Something about the way they were spoken. Not like prey, like a warning. The battle for Earth was about to begin. And for the first time in a very long time, Mira Set was not certain she knew how it would end. Supreme Commander Thaxul stood on the bridge of his flagship and laughed. The sound was harsh and cruel, like metal scraping against metal. They told us not to come, he said to his officers. These primitive creatures actually warned us away. His officers laughed with him. They had conquered 17 worlds together. They had crushed armies that possessed advanced weapons and powerful shields. These humans had neither. This would not even be a real battle. It would be a demonstration. Launch the opening bombardment, Thaxul ordered. Target their largest population centers. Show them what happens to species that refuse to kneel. 1,000 missiles launched from the Kethvor fleet. Each one carried enough destructive power to level a city. They streaked toward Earth in perfect formation. Their guidance systems locked onto targets across the planet. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives watched in sorrowful silence. Some turned away. They did not want to see the destruction. They had witnessed it too many times before. Ambassador Velrix kept her eyes on the screen. She had started this. She had brought the warning. She felt she owed it to the humans to witness their final moments. High Chancellor Mira Set watched without expression. Her ancient face showed nothing, but her 4 eyes never blinked. Then something happened that made everyone freeze. Thousands of small objects rose from Earth's surface. They climbed into the sky on trails of fire and smoke. Chemical rockets, the Council's sensors reported. Simple explosive warheads, Primitive guidance systems. Nothing that could possibly threaten Keth-Vor missiles. What are they doing? Asked Ambassador Krixtal. Those weapons cannot penetrate Keth-Vor defenses, but the human rockets did not try to destroy the incoming missiles. Instead, they flew into carefully calculated positions and detonated in sequence. Massive electromagnetic pulses spread across the upper atmosphere. Blinding flashes of light filled the sky. On the Keth-Vor flagship, alarms began screaming. "Commander!" an officer shouted. "Our targeting systems are disrupted. The missiles have lost guidance," Thaxul snarled. "Impossible. Compensate and reacquire targets. We cannot. The electromagnetic interference is too strong. The missiles are flying blind." In the chaos of disrupted sensors and confused guidance systems, no one on the Keth-Vor ships noticed the second wave of human weapons. These came from hidden silos across the planet, from submarines hidden in deep oceans, from mobile launchers that had been moving since the alien fleet first appeared. Nuclear weapons. Hundreds of them. The Keth-Vor shields were designed to stop energy beams and plasma bolts. They were very effective against such attacks. But nuclear explosions were different. They released pure destructive force in every direction at once. The shields held against most of them. Most. But most was not all. 12 Keth-Vor warships vanished in nuclear fire. Their shields failed under the combined assault of multiple warheads. Their hulls cracked and broke. Their crews died without even understanding what had killed them. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in shocked voices. 12 ships. Someone screamed. "They destroyed 12 ships. That is impossible," another voice shouted. "No pre-contact species has ever destroyed even one Keth-Vor vessel in an opening engagement." High Chancellor Miraset raised her hand for silence. When the chamber finally quieted, she spoke in a voice that trembled slightly. "Ambassador Velrix, tell us more about these humans. Tell us everything." Velrix was already searching through the records, her 4 hands moving frantically across her datapad. What she found made her scales turn even paler than before. "The nuclear weapons," she said. "The humans did not build them to fight aliens. They built them to fight each other." The chamber fell silent. For decades, their 2 largest nations pointed these weapons at each other, thousands of them, enough to destroy their entire world many times over. They called it mutually assured destruction. They lived every day knowing that their civilization could end in nuclear fire at any moment. "They are insane," whispered a representative from the collective. "Perhaps," Velrix continued, "but they are also very good at building weapons. And they have been preparing for war their entire existence as a species." On the screens, the humans were not celebrating their small victory. They were already preparing for the next attack. Factories that had been making civilian goods were switching to military production. Civilians were being organized into militia units. Underground shelters were filling with people and supplies. Supreme Commander Thaxul watched the wreckage of his ships drift through space. His hands gripped the command console so hard that the metal bent under his claws. He had never lost ships in an opening bombardment. Never. "These creatures," he growled. "They used their own weapons against us. Weapons they built to destroy themselves." "Commander," one of his officers said carefully, "perhaps we should reconsider our approach. These humans are more dangerous than we expected." Thaxul spun around, his eyes burning with rage. "Reconsider? We are the Keth-Vor. We do not reconsider. We do not retreat. We conquer or we die." He turned back to the view screen showing Earth. The blue planet seemed to mock him. Such a small world. Such weak creatures. And yet they had drawn first blood. "All ships advance," Thaxul ordered. "Full assault formation. We will not underestimate these humans again. We will crush them with overwhelming force." 3,000 ships began moving toward Earth, their weapons charged, their shields activated at full power. The largest invasion force in Keth-Vor history descended upon a single world. In the council chamber, Ambassador Velrix had found more information about human warfare. "They have a concept called defense in depth," she reported. "They do not try to stop an enemy at one line. They prepare multiple lines of defense, each one designed to slow and weaken the attacker. They trade space for time. They make the enemy pay for every step forward. But eventually they will run out of space," Miraset said. "Eventually there will be nowhere left to retreat." Velrix nodded grimly. "Yes, but humans have another concept for that situation. They call it last stand. When they cannot retreat anymore, they do not surrender. They fight to the death. Every soldier, every civilian, everyone, even knowing they will lose, especially knowing they will lose. Their history is full of such battles. Small groups of warriors holding against impossible odds. They turn defeats into legends. They make their enemies pay such a high price for victory that it becomes almost meaningless. On Earth, the humans watched the Kethvor fleet approaching. They knew what was coming. They knew the odds. They knew most of them would probably die. They prepared anyway. In bunkers deep underground, military commanders coordinated their forces. In cities around the world, civilians built barricades and sharpened whatever they could find. In orbit, the few human spacecraft positioned themselves for desperate attacks. A transmission went out from Earth's unified command. Not to the Kethvor, not to any alien listener, just to the humans themselves. This is our world, our home. Whatever happens, we do not surrender. We do not kneel. We fight until we cannot fight anymore. And then we fight some more. Supreme Commander Thaxol intercepted this message. He had heard defiance before. He had heard brave words from doomed species before. They always broke eventually. They always surrendered or died. But something about this message was different. Something about these humans bothered him in a way he could not explain. They did not sound like prey trying to be brave. They sounded like predators preparing to hunt. Thaxol pushed the thought away. He had 3,000 ships. He had millions of soldiers. He had weapons that could shatter continents. What could these primitive humans possibly do against such power? He was about to find out. The Kethvor landing ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like burning meteors. Thousands of them. Each one carried hundreds of soldiers equipped with the finest weapons in the galaxy. Plasma rifles, energy shields, powered armor that could withstand almost any attack. They expected broken cities filled with terrified survivors. They expected to walk through the ruins and collect slaves. They expected easy victory. They found something else entirely. The first landing zone was in a human city called Tokyo. The Kethvor ships touched down in the rubble of what had once been beautiful buildings. Soldiers poured out, weapons ready, sensors scanning for targets. The streets were empty. The buildings were silent. Nothing moved. Then the explosion started. The ground beneath a Kethvor squad erupted in fire. Human soldiers appeared from hidden positions in the rubble, firing weapons and throwing explosives. Before the aliens could react, the humans vanished again, disappearing into tunnels and basements that the Kethvor sensors could not detect. 12 soldiers dead. In less than 30 seconds, the squad commander called for reinforcements. More Kethvor soldiers rushed to the area. They found nothing. Just empty streets and distant sounds that might have been footsteps. Then another explosion. Another group of aliens died. This pattern repeated across the planet. In New York, in Moscow, in London, in Beijing. Everywhere the Kethvor landed, they met the same deadly welcome. The humans did not fight in organized lines. They did not march in formation. They appeared from nowhere, killed quickly, and vanished again. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives watched in stunned disbelief. "What are they doing?" asked a confused ambassador. "These tactics make no sense. Why do they not form armies and fight properly?" Ambassador Velrix had been researching human military history for hours. Her eyes were tired. Her mind was reeling from what she had learned. "The humans call this guerrilla warfare," she explained. "They have been perfecting it for centuries. They use it when they are outnumbered and outgunned. They avoid direct battles they cannot win. Instead, they strike quickly and disappear. They make the enemy afraid to move, afraid to sleep, afraid of every shadow." "But surely the Kethvor technology will overcome such primitive tactics," someone said. "Will it?" Velrix pointed at the screens showing casualty reports. "The Kethvor have held that city for 3 days. They have lost 2,000 soldiers. The humans have lost perhaps 100. Who is winning?" On the ground, the reality was even worse than the numbers suggested. Kethvor soldiers who had conquered worlds were now terrified of human cities. Every doorway could hide a sniper. Every vehicle could be a bomb. Every civilian might have a weapon under their clothing. A Kethvor officer reported to Supreme Commander Thaxol from the surface. His voice was shaking. "Commander, these humans, they do not fight like any species we have encountered. We captured a group of their soldiers yesterday. We interrogated them, tortured them. They would not break. One of them laughed at us. He laughed while we heard him. He said we had already lost. He said we just did not know it yet. Thaxul slammed his fist against his command console. They are trying to frighten us. It will not work. Send more troops. Burn their cities to the ground. But burning cities did not help. The humans simply moved to new positions. They fought from ruins. They fought from forests. They fought from mountains and swamps and deserts. Every type of terrain on their world became a battlefield, and they knew every inch of it. High Chancellor Miraset watched the reports with growing concern. She had seen many invasions. She had seen many conquered worlds. But she had never seen an invasion go so badly for the attackers. Ambassador Velrix, she said quietly, you mentioned earlier that humans have a concept called spite. Explain this to the council. Velrix took a deep breath. Spite is a human emotion. It means the desire to hurt someone else, even if it hurts yourself. Humans will accept terrible suffering if it means making their enemy suffer more. They will destroy their own resources rather than let an enemy capture them. They will die painful deaths if their death causes problems for their killer. That is madness, said Ambassador Crixtal. Yes, Velrix agreed. But it is very effective madness. The Keith Vor fight for conquest and glory. The humans fight because they refuse to lose. There is no price too high for them, no sacrifice too great. They would rather burn their own world than surrender it. Meanwhile, something else was happening that the Keth Vor did not notice at first. Human computer experts had been studying the alien transmissions since the fleet arrived. They could not understand the language. They could not read the code. But they did not need to. Humans had spent decades fighting digital wars against each other. They had learned to attack systems they did not understand. They had developed techniques for causing chaos in enemy networks. They used those techniques now. On Keth Vor ships, strange errors began appearing. Navigation systems showed wrong positions. Targeting computers locked onto friendly vessels. Communication channels filled with static at critical moments. Nothing catastrophic. Nothing that could be easily identified as an attack. Just enough problems to cause confusion and mistakes. 18 more Keth Vor ships were destroyed by friendly fire incidents in a single day. Thaxul raged on his flagship. How is this happening? We have the finest technology in the galaxy. His technical officers could not explain it. The problem seemed random. They could not find any outside interference. They did not understand that humans did not need to break the system. They just needed to make the system unreliable. Then came the message that changed everything. Human intelligence agencies had been working together since the invasion began. They had captured alien technology. They had interrogated alien prisoners. They had pieced together information from 100 different sources. They sent a transmission to the Keth Vor flagship. It contained no words, just coordinates. The coordinates of the Keth Vor homeworld. Thaxul stared at the message in shock. Humans had no faster than light travel. They had no way to reach his home. But they had found its location. They had sent him a message that said, very clearly, we know where you live. In the council chamber, this transmission was intercepted and analyzed. The implications were immediately clear. They are threatening the Keth Vor homeworld, Miraset said slowly. They cannot reach it now. But they are telling the Keth Vor that someday, they might. It is an empty threat, someone said. The humans are years away from developing faster than light travel. Are they? Velrix pulled up new data. They have been studying captured Keth Vor technology. Human scientists have already begun understanding the basic principles. At their current rate of progress, she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. The humans were not just fighting to survive the invasion. They were already planning what would come after, and what came after, for a species that held grudges for generations, might be very bad for anyone who had ever hurt them. Supreme Commander Thaxul looked at the message on his screen. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear, not of losing this battle, not of dying here, but of what might happen if he won. What might happen if he destroyed this world but some humans escaped? What might happen when those survivors got their hands on real weapons, real ships? What might happen when humanity came looking for revenge? He pushed the fear aside. He was Keth Vor. He did not retreat. He did not show weakness. But the fear did not go away completely. And deep down, in a part of his mind he would never admit existed, Thaxul began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, his officers had been right. Maybe they should not have come to this world. Maybe humanity was not prey at all. 2 months had passed since the HFY arrived at Earth. 2 months of constant battle. 2 months of death and destruction on a scale that would haunt the galaxy forever. The HFY had taken cities. They had taken continents. They had killed millions of humans, but they had not won. For every city they captured, they lost thousands of soldiers. For every continent they claimed, guerrilla fighters made life impossible for their occupation forces. The humans never stopped fighting, not for a single day, not for a single hour. And now, something new was happening. The first human spacecraft appeared in orbit on a Tuesday morning. It was ugly. It was crude. It looked like pieces of different machines welded together by desperate hands. Its hull was covered in scars and patches. Its engines burned uneven and unpredictable, but it flew. And it carried weapons. The HFY patrol ship that spotted it laughed at first. One small, primitive vessel against the might of the Dominion fleet. It was suicide. The human ship did not try to fight the patrol vessel. Instead, it released its cargo, 50 small objects that scattered in all directions, and then disappeared back toward Earth. The patrol commander ordered the objects destroyed, but they were too small, too fast, too many. 40 of them were decoys. 10 were nuclear weapons. 3 more HFY ships died that day. In the Galactic Council chamber, the mood had changed completely from 2 months ago. No one spoke of the humans with pity anymore. No one called them primitive. The representatives watched the screens with a mixture of awe and fear. How did they build spacecraft so quickly? Ambassador Crixtall demanded. It took my species 50 years to reverse engineer our first alien technology. Ambassador Velrix had stopped being surprised by humans weeks ago. They captured HFY landing craft that were damaged but not destroyed. They studied them. They took them apart and figured out how they worked. Then they built their own versions using whatever materials they could find. In 2 months? In 2 months. The humans have a phrase for it. Necessity is the mother of invention. When they need something badly enough, they find a way to create it. Always. More human ships appeared over the following days. Each one was different. Each one was built from whatever was available. Some were barely functional. Others were surprisingly effective. All of them carried nuclear weapons. The HFY fleet was taking losses it had never experienced. Not massive losses, not enough to destroy the invasion, but steady losses, constant losses, death by 1,000 small cuts. Supreme Commander Thaxul called a meeting of his senior officers. The mood was grim. We have lost 120 ships, his second-in-command reported. 47,000 soldiers killed on the ground. Supply lines are constantly attacked. Morale is deteriorating. We have destroyed dozens of their cities, Thaxul growled. We have killed millions of their people. How are they still fighting? No one had an answer. The HFY had never faced an enemy like this. Other species surrendered when their situation became hopeless. Other species tried to negotiate when they were clearly defeated. Humans did neither. One officer spoke up. Commander, perhaps we should consider withdrawal. We can return with a larger fleet. We can use different tactics. Thaxul moved faster than anyone expected. His plasma pistol fired once. The officer fell dead. The HFY do not withdraw, Thaxul said calmly. Anyone else wish to suggest running away? No one spoke. Good. I have a solution to our problem. He activated a holographic display showing a massive device being assembled in the fleet's construction bay. It was spherical, covered in strange symbols, and pulsed with terrible energy. The World Breaker, Thaxul announced. A planet-killing weapon. We have never needed to use one before. Every world we conquered surrendered before it became necessary. But these humans have forced our hand. His officers stared at the device in shock. Even for the HFY, destroying an entire planet was extreme. When the World Breaker is complete and charged, we will crack Earth's core. The planet will tear itself apart. Every human will die, and the galaxy will learn what happens to species that resist the Dominion. In the council chamber, the World Breaker's construction was detected immediately. High Chancellor Miraset called an emergency session. The HFY are building a planet killer, she announced. They intend to destroy Earth completely. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives demanded intervention. Others argued that the council could not risk war with the HFY. Others simply sat in stunned silence. How long until the weapon is ready? Someone asked. 6 hours to complete construction. Another 6 hours to charge the device. 12 hours from now, Earth will die. Ambassador Velrix felt sick. For 2 months, she had watched the humans fight with incredible courage and determination. She had come to admire them, even respect them. And now they would be destroyed anyway. All their sacrifice would mean nothing. But then she noticed something on the screens. The humans had intercepted the same information about the world breaker. They knew what was coming. They were not giving up. Across the planet, every remaining nuclear weapon was being prepared for launch. Every functional spacecraft was being loaded with explosives. Every pilot was volunteering for missions they knew would be one-way trips. "What are they doing?" Crixtal asked. Velrix watched the humans moving with desperate purpose. They are preparing their response. They know they cannot destroy the world breaker with their current weapons. So they are going to slow it down. Buy time. Find another way. Another way? There is no other way. Crime. For us, perhaps. But humans do not accept impossible situations. They find solutions that no one else would consider. Solutions that involve sacrifices no one else would make. On Earth, a single spacecraft was being prepared in secret. It was larger than the others. Stronger. It had been built with one purpose in mind. The ship was named Defiance. Its captain was a woman named Elena Vasquez. She had lost her husband in the initial bombardment. She had lost her children when the HFY destroyed her city. She had lost everything except her determination to make the enemy pay. Her crew were all volunteers. 50 men and women who knew exactly what they were signing up for. They had removed most of the ship's life support systems to make room for a single massive payload. The largest conventional explosive ever built by human hands. They were going to fly directly into the world breaker and detonate their ship. It probably would not destroy the device, but it might damage it. It might delay the firing. It might give Earth a few more hours. A few more hours for the humans on the ground to keep fighting. A few more hours for the other ships to attack the HFY fleet. A few more hours for someone, somewhere, to find a real solution. Captain Vasquez addressed her crew before launch. "We all know this is a one-way trip," she said simply. "We all know we probably will not survive. But we also know that if we do nothing, everyone dies. Our families, our friends, everyone on Earth. I would rather die fighting than live knowing I did nothing." Her crew agreed. Every single one of them. The Defiance launched into space, heading toward the HFY fleet and the world breaker that would soon destroy their world. Behind them, the other human ships began their own attacks, creating chaos and drawing fire, clearing a path for the one ship that mattered. In the council chamber, High Chancellor Mira Set watched the small human vessel climbing toward certain death. "They know they cannot win," she said quietly. "And they fight anyway." Ambassador Velrix nodded. "That is what makes them dangerous. That is what makes them human. They do not need hope to keep fighting. They fight because fighting is all they have left. They fight because surrender is not in their nature." The world breaker continued charging. The Defiance continued climbing. And the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen when human determination met HFY destruction. For the first time in memory, no one in the council chamber was certain of the outcome. The world breaker hung in space like a small moon of death. Energy crackled across its surface as it charged. In less than an hour, it would fire. In less than an hour, Earth would cease to exist. Captain Elena Vasquez guided the Defiance through a storm of plasma fire and explosions. Around her, other human ships were dying. They threw themselves at the HFY fleet, drawing attention and weapons away from the one ship that carried humanity's last desperate hope. "Shield generators failing," her engineer reported calmly. "Hull breaches on decks 2 and 4. Engines at 60%. Keep going," Vasquez ordered. "All power to forward shields and engines. Nothing else matters." Behind them, Earth launched its final nuclear barrage. Every missile humanity had left streaked toward the space around the world breaker. They did not target the device itself, its shields were too strong. Instead, they detonated in a carefully calculated pattern, creating a field of electromagnetic chaos and radioactive debris. The HFY sensors went blind for precious seconds. The Defiance punched through the chaos, her hull glowing red from the heat of nuclear fire and plasma impacts. Half the crew was dead. Life support had failed completely. The survivors breathed from emergency masks and kept working. Supreme Commander Thaxul saw the human ship emerge from the nuclear storm and understood immediately what they intended. "Stop that vessel," he screamed. "All weapons on that ship, destroy it now." But the human attacks had drawn most of the fleet out of position. The ships closest to the Worldbreaker were support vessels with limited weapons. They fired everything they had at the Defiance. It was not enough. Elena Vasquez watched the Worldbreaker grow larger in her viewport. She could see the charging array clearly, now a ring of energy collectors that powered the devastating weapon. If she could hit that ring, if she could damage those collectors, maybe the device would fail. Maybe Earth would live. "Impact in 30 seconds," her pilot announced. His voice was steady despite the chaos around him. "It has been an honor," Vasquez said to her surviving crew. "All of you. Remember why we are here. Remember who we are fighting for." The Galactic Council chamber was absolutely silent. Thousands of representatives watched a tiny human ship flying toward certain death. No one spoke. No one breathed. High Chancellor Miraset leaned forward in her seat. In all her thousands of years, she had never witnessed anything like this. A single vessel crewed by a single species, facing the most powerful weapon in the Kethvor arsenal, and not hesitating for even a moment. The Defiance hit the Worldbreaker's charging array at full speed. The explosion was massive. The human ship's conventional explosive, designed to demolish mountains, combined with the unstable energy in the charging array. The blast tore through the weapon's systems, shattering collectors and rupturing power conduits. The Worldbreaker did not explode. It was too well built for that. But it stopped charging. Its energy levels dropped to zero. Smoke and debris poured from a wound in its side that no repair crew could fix quickly. Elena Vasquez and her crew were gone, vaporized in an instant. But they had done what they set out to do. They had saved Earth. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in shocked voices. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. A pre-contact species had destroyed a Kethvor planet killer. It should have been impossible. It was impossible. And yet it had happened. Supreme Commander Thaxul stared at the damaged Worldbreaker in disbelief. His ultimate weapon was ruined. His fleet was in chaos. And the humans were still fighting. More human ships were appearing from behind Earth. Ugly, crude vessels built in secret factories underground. They carried nuclear weapons and plasma guns stolen from crashed Kethvor craft. They were not powerful by galactic standards, but there were dozens of them. And they attacked with the fury of a species that had just watched their heroes sacrifice everything. "Commander!" an officer shouted. Multiple contacts approaching from the outer system. Human vessels from their colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. They have been traveling for weeks. Thaxul felt something cold settle in his chest. Reinforcements. The humans had reinforcements coming, and his own fleet was battered, confused, and demoralized. His officers looked at him with fear in their eyes. Not fear of the humans. Fear of what Thaxul might order next. Fear of dying in a battle that no longer made sense. One by one, Kethvor ship captains began making their own decisions. First one vessel turned away from Earth and engaged its hyperspace drive, then another, then 10 more. "Stop them," Thaxul roared. "I will execute any captain who retreats," but no one listened anymore. The retreat became a flood. Ships that had conquered 17 worlds fled from a single planet of primitives who refused to accept defeat. Within an hour, the Kethvor fleet was gone. Only debris remained in orbit around Earth, mixed with the ashes of brave humans who had given everything. The war was over. Humanity had won. 6 months later, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the Galactic Council. Not the captain who had died saving Earth, that was her cousin, and she carried the name with painful pride. This Elena had been a diplomat before the invasion. Now she was humanity's first representative to the galaxy. The chamber was packed. Every species in the council wanted to see the humans in person, wanted to understand how this pre-contact civilization had defeated the Kethvor. High Chancellor Miraset spoke first. "Ambassador Vasquez, on behalf of the Galactic Council, we welcome humanity to the community of civilized species. Your remarkable victory has earned you this place." Vasquez nodded politely. "We are honored to be here. We must ask," Miraset continued, "how did you do it? How did you defeat an enemy so much more powerful than yourselves?" Vasquez was quiet for a moment. Then she looked around the chamber at all the aliens who had watched her species fight and die and refused to surrender. "You want to know what humans are?" she said. We are the species that learned to split the atom and immediately wondered if we could turn it into a weapon. We are the species that traveled to our moon not for resources, but because it was there and we wanted to see if we could reach it. We have spent 10,000 years fighting each other, and we are still here. We survived ice ages and plagues and disasters. We survived ourselves. She paused, letting her words sink in. The Kethvor thought they were predators. They thought they were the most dangerous things in the galaxy. They were wrong. The galaxy has no predators. She smiled then, a hard smile that made every representative uncomfortable. Only us. The chamber was completely silent. Ambassador Velrix of the Torani hegemony watched the human diplomat with new eyes. She remembered how she had once felt pity for these creatures, how she had expected to watch them die in days. Now she felt something else entirely. Later that evening, High Chancellor Mira Set sat alone in her office, reviewing the updated files on humanity. Their threat level had been changed from pre-contact primitive to Class 1 strategic concern, the highest category that existed. A junior aide brought her tea and asked nervously, "High Chancellor, should we be worried about the humans?" Mira Set considered the question carefully. Humanity had shown itself capable of mercy. They had not pursued the fleeing Kethvor fleet. They had not demanded revenge or conquest. They seemed genuinely interested in peace and cooperation, but she had watched them fight. She had seen what they were capable of when they felt threatened. She had witnessed their determination, their creativity, their absolute refusal to accept defeat. "No," she said finally, "I do not think we need to be worried. The humans are not conquerors by nature. They do not want to rule the galaxy. They simply want to live in peace." She added a personal note to the file anyway, a warning for future generations. Never give humanity a reason to fight. They are very, very good at it. On Earth, survivors were rebuilding their shattered cities. They mourned their dead, millions of them. They honored their heroes, Captain Vasquez and her crew, and thousands of others who had given their lives. They knew the scars of this war would last for generations, but they had survived. Against impossible odds. Against an enemy that had never been defeated. Humanity looked up at the stars now with new eyes. They knew they were not alone in the universe. They knew there were dangers out there beyond imagination. They knew other enemies might come someday, and they knew, with absolute certainty, that they would be ready, because that was what humans did. They endured, they adapted, they fought, and they never, ever gave up.